Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you're joining us from. We're glad to have you here for our regularly scheduled Thursday XPM webinar series. Today's session, is on planning and implementing a successful Atlassian cloud migration. So we hope that's what you're planning to learn about today. Our hosts today are Jason Kidner, who's a solutions architect, safe program consultant, and an Atlassian expert, along with me, Scott Price, holding the same credentials. In addition, both of us have performed multiple Atlassian cloud migrations, both real and simulated, and we hope to spare you some of the pain points that we've gone through. But we would like for you to have a better understanding of what's involved in moving from server or data center to the Atlassian cloud. So that's what our webinar is about today. So let's start with just a question of why are we here? Atlassian has taken a cloud-first approach. First of all, that's one of the reasons that people may be here for this event. And so, with this cloud-first approach, what we're finding is that many of the best features that Atlassian has to offer are coming out on cloud first. And so that definitely has not been the case in previous years. Server and data center were extremely feature-rich. But there have been many more new features come out in cloud in the last year and a half, especially, that is making people take another look at cloud, especially with Jira Service Management. Some really great features have come out recently. And many of the Atlassian clientele have taken a cloud-first approach too. So people that have traditionally been on server or data center want to manage their own hardware. They're taking a look at not just Atlassian products, but lots of products in their data center, and moving to cloud first. It simplifies a lot of the integrations, and so that's one of the reasons for it. We want to share in the chat with you just a tool that can be really helpful. This is a page at Atlassian's website that is the cloud roadmap. And so if you're considering a move to the cloud and you want to see what features are coming, what features are there, and if you have a specific feature, for instance, that you're waiting to be available in cloud before you move from server or data center, this little tool can be extremely handy for you to understand kind of where they're going. But many of the tool integrations are quicker to implement in cloud. Because Atlassian has extremely robust cloud APIs. Incidentally, the APIs in server and data center are quite different from cloud APIs. So that's one thing to be thinking about if you're making the move. You will have to change APIs if you've written API automation on your server or data center instance. We also note one of the reasons why we're here is because of this announcement that's on your screen right now, and we'll put that announcement in the chat as well. This announcement that came out in 2020 announcing the end of life for server. And so the only way to stay on premise with Jira and Confluence at this point is to either migrate to a data center, which is essentially a licensing change, or to migrate to the cloud. And so this timeline gives you the timeline of events, and it culminates with February 2nd of 2024, where we're going to be at end of support. So this has prompted many people, maybe it's prompted you to be here today to look at what are your options. And not too long ago, data center required some hardware changes, but they've pivoted that to be just a licensing change. But it is more expensive, so it really depends on your size and scale, whether you want to move to that level or not. With XPM, we have the expertise to help clients move to the cloud. So if you're looking for someone to help you on that journey, we've handled from very small clients to very large clients, over 6,000 users at this point. We just recently did. And Atlassian can currently handle up to 20,000 users. So their scale is getting much larger over time in the cloud. So even if you have a pretty good size instance, you may be able to go to the cloud. And then there's also the enterprise cloud offering that Atlassian offers, which gives you an opportunity to have an overarching user and group management organization in the cloud, and then have multiple instances underneath that where people can have their own unique configurations. So that's another expertise that we bring to bear to help you with either single or multiple instances. So let's talk about what's in scope for a cloud migration. So with this journey to the cloud, Jira Software, Confluence, Jira Service Management, Bitbucket, Crowd, these are all moving to the cloud. Bamboo is actually what is known as Bitbucket pipelines now. So if you have Bamboo Server, you may be interested in going to Bitbucket Cloud and using Bitbucket pipelines for your CI/CD. That is a possibility. Bamboo Data Center was not an option until recently, but just this summer, Data Center came out for Bamboo. So if you are Bamboo Server and you really don't want to retool all of your automations to go to the cloud, that is a fairly large undertaking. Bamboo Data Center is available, and you could take advantage of that depending on the cost, whether that works for you. Out of scope, Fisheye and Crucible, those are much less known and used tools, but a lot of that functionality that comes with Fisheye, which is search and diff tools, and Crucible's code review, a lot of that functionality has been built into Bitbucket Cloud already. So if you're thinking about moving Bitbucket to the cloud, quite honestly, Fisheye and Crucible may not be necessary because of that. Okay, let's talk about platforms now for a bit. With Cloud and Data Center, those are now your only two options because Atlassian has moved away from server based on the timeline that we showed you on the previous slide. And so if we look at the differences between these platforms, one of the things that we will find as differences is the tiers, and we'll look at that in the next slide. But what you have is the ability to really scale up now in either a data center or cloud. When cloud first started coming out, there was a serious limitation on number of users, but that has gotten much better as of late. As we said, 20,000 users now with cloud, and that's going to just keep going up. And of course, that's unlimited with data center. On cloud, it's unlimited with respect to enterprise. If you use the enterprise tier, you have the ability to have unlimited instances underneath that enterprise tier, which allows you to take advantage of that. With regard to security and compliance, with cloud, Atlassian is taking care of so many of those things that that you're having to take care of yourself on server and also on data center. So you might be interested in cloud for that reason. Reliability, of course, you have to take on all the responsibility for reliability when you're managing your own data center. In the cloud, you actually offload that responsibility to Atlassian, and they offer SLAs from 99.9 to 99.95 on enterprise to make sure that you have reliability there. And we're going to post in a link in the chat for you that is a link to their Cloud Fortified App Program. Down here under Apps and Extensibility, the Cloud Fortified is a new designation of apps or add-ons. That's one of the big decision points in going to the cloud is there's always been quite a difference between apps between cloud and server or data center because it's two totally different infrastructures and two totally different designs. So there's always been more apps available on server or data center than cloud. That's rapidly changing. And this Cloud Fortified app is a program to help you pick the apps that might work for you best on cloud. And so this link that we just pasted in chat for you can help you with identifying those apps that really tick off 3 key boxes, which is security, reliability, and support. So look for those that are cloud fortified, and that will help you determine which apps you might want to choose on the cloud. And then with regard to building out those apps, one of the things that's kept cloud apps from being behind on-premise apps a little bit has been with an on-premise app, an add-on builder like ourselves can actually take advantage of your hardware if you're on server or data center. And so we can run our app on your hardware. That's not the case in cloud. You have to spin up your own server to run those add-ons in cloud. Well, Forge, that last item on that list on cloud apps and extensibility, Forge is a new tool which is a serverless tool that allows app builders to rely on Atlassian compute power to actually drive the add-ons. And so that has actually fueled a big movement to get more add-ons available in the cloud. And so there is a bit of a dynamic where you want to understand what's available in cloud versus data center. And so we're going to put another link in chat for you so that you can take a look at the data center offering and understand what data center gives you instead of server. So that's going to be one of your big gaps for deciding whether to move to cloud or data center. So use this as a tool to help you decide whether you're going to go to cloud or to data center from server, if that's the move that you're making. Okay, the next slide, let's talk about some of the reasons for cloud migration. This is an interesting statistic here. 80% of enterprise workloads will shift to the cloud by 2025. And this is a pretty amazing statistic. This comes from Gartner. And that's an indication that lots of people are shifting to the cloud. And so that's really fueling part of this conversation around cloud migration for Atlassian instances. And so not all of that is SaaS. You know, some of that is actually still server instances that are cloud hosted, but many are choosing SaaS applications like Jira and Confluence, Bitbucket Cloud, and so forth. So one of the things that need to be mindful of with this shift is this business model shift. You know, server was a perpetual license, and very few companies are doing that anymore. And so when you purchase a Jira server license or a Confluence server license, you had that from now on, and that's what's going away. The part of the problem for that was, you know, lack of a consistent income stream. Unless you were signing up for support, the companies don't have that guaranteed income. So if you're going to stay on premise and pivot to data center, then you're going to be signing up for a subscription service. If you stop paying for it, it stops working. And so data center and cloud are both the same from that respect now. It's really pay as you go, either month to month or annually. But certainly cloud is making a big bang for many folks. The next slide, if we can go to that, let's talk about cloud tier levels for just a bit. There are 4 tiers of software or cloud, excuse me, for moving Jira software, Jira Service Management, or Confluence. And the first 2 are fairly nominal. Free is really just a way to get started, to try it out, see if you like it. Less than 10 users. Standard gets you a lot of the capabilities, but and you can go over 10 users and go to the maximum number of users if you want to. But you really start getting some rich features whenever you get into premium and enterprise. Atlassian Access there across the bottom is a tool that allows you to do user management and group management from some kind of an IDP, an identity system, where you can connect that to your Atlassian cloud, make sure that the users are automatically provisioned and automatically provisioned to the appropriate groups and instances that you're using. And you get some really rich features with both Premium and Enterprise. Again, Enterprise is the tier where you can have one overarching user and group management organization, and then you could have individual instances. And so this might be something to think about, where you have different business units that are part of your instance, but they have maybe their own specific needs. And so Enterprise could be a really great solution for that. We just pasted a link for you to have access to, which really allows you to understand the difference between plans. And so we're not going to actually go to those pages right now, but this is going to give you access to pricing against products, from product to product and from tier to tier. There's quite a bit of difference. For instance, if you go from standard to premium, you'll notice a pretty big price change, but you want to be sure that you're looking at those services that are offered at each of those tiers to help you make that decision point. And then the link that is, let me just share that link again. I want to call your attention to one that I'm pasting right now. This one is one of the best resources that we'll probably give you today. And this allows you to do a really nice comparison across products, so that you can see from product to product and from tier to tier what you're actually getting on each plan. And so if you miss some of the other things that we offer up to you today, I would encourage you to make particular note of that one, because it's a really helpful tool to help you kind of align your needs to what's offered from the Atlassian cloud. I just want to point out a couple of really important features on Premium and Enterprise that I particularly like, called Sandbox and Release Tracks. So on the Premium and the Enterprise tier, Atlassian actually gives you a free Sandbox instance that goes along with your production instance. And this Sandbox can really be a helpful tool for you to get in and try things out, and make sure that you have a workflow the way you want it, an automation the way you want it, before you actually roll it into your production instance. The other feature that goes right along beside that is called Release Tracks. And Release Tracks allows you to schedule and stage the changes that are coming in cloud. So we talked earlier about a lot of the new features. Atlassian's best and newest features are coming cloud first, and they're coming rapidly, and you never know when they're coming. Well, Release Tracks actually gives you a way to schedule when those are coming. So you can schedule when you get those changes, and you can also schedule where they go. So you can point the new changes at your Sandbox instance, try those new features out, make sure that you're aware of any organizational change communication that needs to happen, and then you can let it hit your production instance. I think that's a really valuable set of tools, Sandbox and Release Tracks, but you only get those at the Premium and Enterprise tier. So the next thing that we want to talk about is Atlassian Access for a bit. Atlassian Access is a really robust user and group management tool. It's really key for most companies that are migrating to the cloud that have very many users, because you can of course add users manually to your Atlassian cloud, and you can provision them manually to whatever tool they're using, Jira or Confluence, for instance, Jira Service Management. But that's pretty heavy lifting if you've got a large number of users. Also, if you are used to using the crowd server or data center product that allows you to manage users between Atlassian server or data center products, you can think of Atlassian Access as the cloud version of crowd. So this allows you to oversee all the users and groups and provision them to the appropriate instance. Access based on product, access based upon groups. And so this is the tool that you would use there. This also is a key tool for using single sign-on. If you want your users to be able to utilize single sign-on, you have to have Atlassian Access in order to do that. And then user provisioning also requires Atlassian Access. You also get some security features like two-factor authentication, Cloud Access Security Broker, the CASB integration, and then also an organizational audit log, which is really handy. And so Atlassian Access may be a really important tool for you as part of your Atlassian cloud migration, depending on the number of users that you have and how you like to manage those. Okay, we're going to toss the ball over to Jason at this point to talk about XPM a bit.
All right, thanks, Scott. So a little bit about us. So XPM, we're a Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner. We are based in St. Louis, Missouri, but have consultants around the US and overseas. So we specialize in a number of things. First off is training. In addition to doing webinars, weekly webinars like this one, we also offer public and private trainings. We're probably maybe best known for our Jira boot camps and Confluence boot camps that happen about every month. But we train on any Atlassian products. And so we very much specialize in that. We also have a YouTube channel that we're going to be posting some videos from that in the chat room as well. But we have a lot of short and long videos out on YouTube in our YouTube channel that could be very helpful for you and are available publicly. We also do a lot of consulting as an Atlassian solution partner. We are experts at all the Atlassian products, whether it's server, data center, or cloud, including obviously these cloud migrations. So really anything you need help with your Atlassian suite of products, we are available and would love to talk with you. And you can certainly reach out to us. We'll share our contact details at the end of this webinar. We also have a sister company called Oasis Digital Solutions that is a full stack developer company. So really any custom development work that's needed, we can offer it. We can work with Oasis and pretty much do about anything you might need, from custom front ends to special customized integrations or plugins that you might need. So really we have a lot of experts in-house and can help with pretty much anything. And we also, as an Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner, we can also offer licensing support for you, whether or not you're working with us in another way. We can offer some really great deals, especially with the annual pricing. So we would highly suggest, even if you just need licensing support, come and talk to us. We can certainly probably get you some really good pricing, even better than going directly to Atlassian. All right, well, that's the end of our little commercial. So let's carry on talking about cloud migrations. And so we're now going to focus on the benefits of migrating from server data center to cloud. So a few we want to highlight. First is extensibility, which is more integrations. And this is what Atlassian really likes to talk about as one of its major benefits. So going to cloud, the cloud offers a lot more integrations with other SaaS products, things like Slack and Zoom, and Dropbox, things like that, have a lot of just built-in integrations with the Atlassian cloud products. I know they're doing a lot of stuff with Microsoft Teams as well. So you're going to find these in cloud, not so much in server or data center. And Scott's going to post a link to some more information from Atlassian about their extensibility. Another major benefit, this might be probably one of the most important things you're thinking about, is cost. And so there is some major wins you get with moving from an on-prem hosted cloud or products to cloud hosted products. And so your total cost of ownership will very, very likely go down. The quote at the bottom says 36% of customers say their total cost of ownership went down. I would think that it would really be a lot higher than that, because what you're getting is you're getting a reduced operating expenses, because you're not necessarily going to have to pay for all your different system admins that are taking care of all these various aspects of an on-prem hosted products. You're also likely going to reduce your CapEx around server hardware or hosting your cloud, hosting your hardware out on like Azure or AWS, things like that. So now with Atlassian hosting your cloud, you really are only paying here, you're paying your administration costs. You're still going to have administrators for your cloud, and you're going to have your subscriptions that you're paying to Atlassian. But overall, Atlassian is managing the back end of those products. And so what I want to highlight one, let's see here, this one website that we'll also post in the chat. But it's a great way to just kind of get a broad sense of the savings you're going to get by moving to the cloud. So for instance, we'll just hypothetically think of you have a 1,000 user Jira Software Server instance and 1,000 user Confluence instance, and you want to migrate those. So you can put this in, you can add other products in here, or even other instances that you have, and you click on this estimate, and it gives you a very quick estimate of your cost savings. And you can see here, for just going to the standard tier, you can also look at premium tier, because premium is more expensive in cloud, but just going to standard, you're just going to save here almost $100,000. So major cost savings overall, and that's probably is going to be a major factor as you think about migrating. So that's one, again, another major benefit. Few other benefits. There's some licensing improvements, and with this, the cloud licensing is simpler than the server licensing, where you have different licensing for each different product. In the cloud, all the licenses fall under one umbrella, including your add-ons. So it makes things very easy to add midway through your billing cycle, or to just add users or change the user license count. Those can all be added, and we can get quotes for you midstream, and they'll all be co-termed, and it's much simpler to deal with your licensing in the cloud. You also have some things where you could be saving costs on licenses in the cloud, whereas you might have had to have plugins like advanced roadmaps or some other plugins in server data center. Some of those, like if you go to premium in the cloud, you get advanced roadmaps included. And also if you go up to enterprise, you get access included if you go to that enterprise tier. So there's some things too, but as you go up to tier, you get some more things that would have been add-ons in the past, but now it's just part of your cloud licensing costs. Another benefit is the opportunity for system and database cleanup. So again, when you're moving, just like if you're moving house in the real world, you have the ability, and often you're looking through all your stuff and you're deciding, is this going to go with us to where we're going to be moving to, or are we just going to throw it out or donate it? So it's a great time for cleanup. So just like, and with migrating, you want to look at, it's a great time to look at your users and groups, your permissioning in your projects, deciding, is this project even worth migrating? Or maybe we're just going to archive it, or maybe we're not going to migrate it at all. So it is a great time to just look at your overall instance and make some updates and improvements. And lastly here, we just want a little word on governance. We talk about governance a lot when we're engaging with clients because it's just so important. And whether you have Atlassian governance or you don't, and you want to implement it, the migration could be a great time to form a team that can be your governing team around your Atlassian products, and can just really help a lot in making those decisions when you get to the cloud. And there's a few links we have, a couple of videos out on YouTube that we can highlight some of the things. Just if you've never heard or thought about governance, these could be some things to think about. And we always usually bring those up in our engagements. Okay, next we're going to switch to the differences. And there are a number of differences, well, actually quite a few we're going to talk about as you go from server data center to the cloud. So first off is the marketplace apps. And Scott noted that those differences were going to be out there earlier on, and including obviously the API differences as well. We could kind of put that right in with this, but there are a lot of differences with your marketplace apps. Some apps you have in server data center, they don't even exist in cloud. Other apps, you're going to get different functionality, maybe even a more limited functionality, again, because of those APIs and some of that underlying architecture differences in the cloud. So this is one of the big considerations when we're working with clients, and it's part of the discovery. And I'll just highlight here, there is a free app you can get for Jira Confluence. There are these migration assistant apps. And this is part of the migration assistant. This is one for Jira. There's an apps assessment area. So this one, what it does is it just goes out and looks at all your apps on your server data center, and then it notes whether that app actually exists in cloud and whether there's a nice kind of thought through migration path from the vendor. The vendors have all had to scramble the past year to kind of think of how do we make a nice, ideally automated path of migrating our app from server to cloud. So, but this migration assistant can highlight all of those, and then it can give you, some guidance on that. You can read up on it. You can engage with a partner like XVM to help think through what it would look like to migrate these and whether they will migrate. If they can't migrate, maybe there's some other workarounds that we could certainly help you with. So apps is a major part of how complex your migration is going to be. And there's also, obviously, with apps, you do, again, gain some of those apps in some of the higher tier in cloud. So and some of the apps like advanced roadmaps, they do migrate pretty nicely. Another difference is user and group management. So when you go to the cloud, the one big difference with users is that users are recognized in the cloud by email address. So the idea of a username that you're used to in server and data center, that's not there. So all the users have to have an email address, and they'll get an Atlassian cloud account based on that email address. And that email address will kind of follow them around to any of the cloud products that they're logging into. So that's a big difference. There's also some differences in UI, and I'll just show you this. Those of you who are used to being the system admins or in server data center, here's a cloud instance, just a very basic one Scott and I stood up. And when you're, let's say, the site admin or the organization admin in cloud, you have a gearbox up in the upper right, and under settings, you'll see this user management option. And when you open this up, it basically takes you to this layer outside of your Jira or your Confluence cloud product, and it's in this Atlassian administration area. And this basically is this centralized area to manage your users and groups. And you can see here there's quite a different UI from what you're used to in server data center. So you have your users out here. You can click on each of those, and you can get a sense of which groups they're in, which products they have access to. You can hover over this and see which products they're in. It could be, set up in products for various different sites if you have like that enterprise umbrella and multiple sites underneath it. And there's also quite a bit difference with groups, where you see all your groups out here. You can see the details of those, see all the users that are in them. And it's really nice. They've made a lot of changes to the UI over the past year, and they're actually, this UI we're seeing here is being rolled out with new sites and gradually being changed over from existing cloud sites. So this is what, if you're spinning up a new cloud instance, this is the UI you're going to see going forward. And then we mentioned Atlassian Access earlier. This is also the area where all those Atlassian Access features are going to be turned on, where you can set up your managed accounts by email domain, and you can do your user provisioning from your Active Directory. You can set up single sign-on. It's all done out here in this administrative area. So some really nice centralized ways forward in the cloud that are really, really nice, and I think simpler than they are in server data center. Okay, another major change is the UI in Jira and Confluence and Jira Service Management. I mean, there's just some major differences now between cloud and your server data center experience. And I'll just highlight a few of these here. There's many that could be shared. So for instance, in Jira Software Cloud, when you come into a project and you want to look at your issues, the issue view screen is very different from server data center. So just very quick glance, this looks totally different. So you have a lot of things that might show up in different panels in this part of the view screen now appear as buttons, like attachments, creating subtasks, doing links, and other various things up here. And then you have some fields that appear here, but most of the fields are going to now start to appear over in this right-hand panel. And you can actually adjust this as a project admin. You have a lot of control over whether these fields appear here, or maybe they just appear when they're filled in and they're hidden until they're actually populated. So a lot of differences here. And one major difference is you don't see the transition, the workflow transition buttons over here like you do in server data and data center. You now see this drop-down menu, which shows you the various transitions that are available from your given status. And you can also see your workflow as well from here. And you also have your more action buttons over here instead of a more actions button kind of underneath the summary. So things have been kind of shifted around, very different. It will take some getting used to. And we certainly, as we work with clients, we offer videos. There's a few actually out on YouTube that show the differences your users can expect when they migrate from server to cloud. So this is a big difference. And one other thing, when you go to a board, just related to the UI differences, when you're on one of your cards on a board, when you click on one of these cards now, instead of seeing that issue detail view pop out from the right, you see the whole issue view screen, and you can do all sorts of actions on this, just like we could in that previous screen I showed. This is something I find really, really nice compared to server and data center. So that's one of, there's a number of other things. You can see some of the different drop downs are different. We're not going to go into all the differences with this. I did want to highlight too that there are differences in Confluence Cloud, quite a bit. When you do migrate your Confluence Cloud pages, they will come over and they will look very similar in the cloud, and they'll still have the ability, it's called the legacy editor in the cloud, so you will still see a lot of the same user interface with those migrated pages. But when you create new pages, you can even see here, it looks quite a bit different. But when you actually create a new page, let's go ahead and do a new page here. You can even see the UI in the menu is a lot different as well. But when you create this new page, it's a very different setup. So you put a title in, and as soon as you do that, you have this totally different toolbar at the top. You have your templates that are available over here now that you can choose from. And again, tables is going to be very different. I mean, most things in this new editor are very different from the cloud. You will say that, well, I'll get this in the challenges, but there are some differences. A lot of things that you were used to using in the Confluence server doesn't come over exactly the same in Confluence Cloud, and that can be frustrating for some of your Confluence savants that have created some really fancy pages. Some of that stuff might not be possible in cloud. So that's just a few of the many UI and UX differences. Jira automation. This is something that could have been an add-on out in server data center. It's now packaged in with the various cloud tiers. And I'll just show you what this looks like if you've never seen it in your current on-prem products. So let's go over here. Actually, let's jump back into this project. So this is available for project admins. It's also available for your Jira admins to do. But there's this automation piece now under project settings that allows you to set up a lot of different rules that you didn't used to be able to do in the cloud, but now they've packaged this in. You do have a limit on the number of rule executions for free and standard, but it almost practically becomes unlimited once you get up to the premium tier and the enterprise tier. But these rules, I'm not going to go into in depth, but actually I could probably show you a couple of examples here. Actually, they're not showing there. Here's a library actually of some rules where you can do a lot of triggers and actions and conditions around things. So there's some out of the box, like when all the stories are completed, then go ahead and close their epic, the Jira epic that's parenting them. That's quite handy. You also have ones when an epic is completed, then close all the children's stories. So those are just two of many examples of things that can be done with automation. There's also triggering that can happen from your DevOps tools like Bitbucket. They can trigger things within your Jira projects as well. But this comes in handy. We've even seen how some things that might have been done with maybe Script Runner out in your server data center instance, and it's not available in Script Runner in cloud, they could be available, and you could have an automation rule that could do the same thing that Script Runner was doing. So we've done a lot of workarounds with clients using just the out-of-the-box automation because it is quite powerful. So a few other things here. Advanced roadmaps. This is a very popular add-on out in server data center. I think it's now packaged and it's a free add-on for data center users. But advanced roadmaps is included in the premium and enterprise tier levels of Jira software. So if you are used to using it in cloud or in server or data center, you do need to, and you want to keep using it, you need to go up to at least the premium level. That's a big consideration here. And the advanced roadmaps, they show up now instead of under, well, I think it's shifted now for data center and server, but it shows up under the plans dropdown. And it's pretty much, it's similar UI. There are some changes. Again, Atlassian is becoming that cloud first sort of company. So they are investing more in the cloud advanced roadmaps than they are in the server data center. And so you will see some different UI out here and various, again, changes that they're making. So, but these plans will migrate over from your on-prem instance, but it's available again in premium and enterprise tier in the cloud. A few other things just highlight quickly. There's the business projects in the cloud are now called Jira Work Management projects, and they're different from the business projects you've been used to in server or data center. So I'll just highlight over here. Let's go back to our project list and just give you a quick glance at one of these business projects, which is now, again, called Jira Work Management. So there's a whole different list of options under your projects. You have this list view, which is like a spreadsheet view, and you can make changes in the cells of the list, which is really nice for those of your business users who are just used to using spreadsheets. They can bring those issues in and still manage things in Jira like they would with spreadsheets. And there's plenty of other things like boards. There's a calendar view. There's a timeline view, which is kind of like a roadmap view. And a few other things that Atlassian's invested a lot into these Jira Work Management. So that's there. Let's go back. I'm not going to actually show it, but there are team managed projects in the cloud. And we don't necessarily encourage these because they kind of get outside of the governance of a Jira admin. But you can, users, you can turn this on or off. But if you have it on, any user can basically create a project in Jira that's a team managed project where they can decide what the fields are, what the issue types are, things like that, which again is kind of in a whole other universe in the database from your normal classically created projects that are governed by your Jira admins. So again, could be helpful, but oftentimes we've seen clients run into issues with this. So they're out there, but don't necessarily encourage them. Lastly here, there's various adjustments and challenges. Some of those things we've kind of noted here, but there are some limitations in the cloud for, again, customized solutions, whether that's in Confluence or Jira Service Management. You just have some limitations on what you can do maybe with customized things that might have been easier to do in the server or the data center. You also have some limitations around the number of rows you can export. When you're doing a filter results and you want to export, you have a limitation of 1,000 rows there. And then just some other things around, there is the consideration of where the data is hosted. So data residency, they've actually expanding that quite a bit in the cloud to even to the lower levels, so you can decide where your data resides, and they're rolling that out more and more to various countries. But you also are dealing with various apps and the app vendors, and that data might be managed or hosted a little different place than Atlassian's hosting. So just some things to just be mindful of with that. And we have mentioned already about the Confluence Cloud and some of the challenges that you're likely going to run into if you're using lots of HTML macros or doing a lot of customized user macros, things like that. A lot of those don't migrate or don't migrate well. So that's definitely a call out and a caution with the Confluence migration. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Scott, who's going to walk us through what it looks like, what's the roadmap look like to do a cloud migration.
Thanks, Jason. So this is a high-level roadmap that is actually offered by Atlassian, and it's a really good tool to use to kind of walk you through a migration from start to finish. And so from assess to plan to prep to test, migrate, and launch. And so we'll just talk about a few things in these different buckets that you might want to think about. During this assess phase, this is where you're going to be comparing cloud versus server. You're going to be comparing functionality and cost and making sure that the cloud is a fit for you. You probably want to get your InfoSec team involved at this point and get them comfy with cloud security from Atlassian. And you want to evaluate, especially during this time, user management changes. User management is going to be one of the bigger changes you'll make in moving to the cloud, and so that assess time is a good time to really understand that. Then you're going to go into planning phase. Here you're going to really be thinking about the size and complexity of your data, and make sure that you're including apps in that, because your app data, your attachment data, all of those things really factor in. And during this planning phase, you want to determine the best strategy. There are several strategies that you can use: an optimized lift and shift, a basic lift and shift, a phased project by project approach, or starting fresh with a greenfield approach. And essentially, you want to just develop a plan during this phase of how you intend to do your migration. And then the prep phase, you want to prep your team, you want to prep your sites, you want to prep your data. There's definitely some data preparation to be done, especially on users. Jason mentioned earlier the pivot from username in server and data center to email as the key user identification in cloud. A lot of companies really have to prep their user data at this stage. And then you want to test, and you want to test, you want to test, and you want to test again and test some more. And with cloud, there are frequent changes in these cloud environments, and you really need to have a high degree of confidence that your migration plan works. So we recommend many iterations depending on the complexity of your migration. We recommend that you try it many times. And then you're going to do the actual migration, the go live migration. Pick a date. You want to be sure that you arrange Atlassian support for this migration, especially on weekends. If you're planning to migrate on a weekend, don't just assume that Atlassian support is going to be available to help you. You need to give them a heads up on what your plans are and engage them in the process. Another thing you might consider doing is freezing cloud updates during your migration. That's something that you can do so that the instance doesn't change underneath you while you're migrating to it. You want to communicate to the organization what's going on, train users on any of the server to cloud functionality gaps or changes, and there are a few from either server or data center to cloud that people need to get used to. And then you want to launch, go live and monitor, mitigate go live issues, reflect and celebrate. Those are all part of the plan. And so it's a really good map for how to get from here to there. But you also need to think about how long that takes. So that's the roadmap, but what's the timeline associated with that? And that really varies based upon your size and complexity. And the next slide will kind of show you a little bit of an example of what the different sizes might look like. And we don't have actual times or dates to this because it varies quite a bit. But if you've got 100 users, a real simple instance, not a lot of automation or anything like that, you can do this in really short order. But if you're up there at 5,000 or 6,000 users, you might take up to 12 months, honestly, from start to finish, from the assess phase clear to the launch and post-launch activities. So don't be surprised if you're looking at from 6 to 12 months for a larger implementation. And all of this complexity is based upon different things, apps, the number of apps, the complexity, the dependency between apps, automation, customization, the workflow customizations that you've done, any third-party inputs or outputs that you're relying on, the number of projects, the number of custom fields, these all enter in. The relationship of teams to projects, and honestly, your existing governance, making sure that you have a good plan for how to introduce changes to your organization. All of those things can enter into the timeline, but a typical larger migration can take from 6 to 12 months quite easily, and the smaller ones can take from 1 to 3 months. So it gives you kind of a generic idea. Next, I want to show you just kind of a couple of slides, just kind of to give you a little bit of a thought process. One of the things that we like to do in our cloud migration engagements is we actually like to use Atlassian tools to manage those projects. And so we rely on a lot of collaboration, risk management, a lot of governance, and we need visibility. And so we utilize Jira and Confluence both together to actually manage our project work for the migration itself. We use Jira to create and track deliverables and work items, and we use advanced roadmaps for the planning and give us that roadmap view. And we use Confluence for project management reports, and I think the next slide may show the advanced roadmap view. And well, this shows actually Confluence, where we're using Confluence for project management reporting, a project dashboard, so people understand kind of where we are now. This is where we maintain artifacts and other documentation for the migration. So we really highly recommend using the Atlassian products for your migration planning, and it can really help you have a successful move to the cloud. All right, I think that covers our planned activities. So I'll kick it to Jason for a wrap up.
Great, yeah, thank you, Scott, and thank you to everyone who's joined today. Hopefully this answered a lot of your questions and maybe brought up a lot of other questions as well. So you can see here our email addresses for Scott and I. Please feel free to email us, let us know how we can help at all with as you consider your Atlassian product migration. Also wanted to note here, you can see a lot of the upcoming webinars and also our public bootcamp classes. We have our public bootcamp, Jira and Confluence, coming up in early December and also in January. And I want to make a special mention here to this event happening on November 18th. This could be a good follow-on from this webinar for you. But it's an interactive workshop we're calling Planning Your Atlassian Cloud Migration. So you can see more information about this on the XPM website, and go here. And so it's right on the homepage of the XPM website. I'm assuming you got here to register for this webinar, but you can look at this and apply for it. It's really, again, it's meant for organizations who are pretty serious about considering their cloud migration. And it's going to be a few hours, at least I think 3 hours long. And it's going to be very hands-on. So we're going to cover some of the stuff we've talked about in this webinar in more depth. And we're actually going to have you do some exercises related to your own instance around discovering, again, thinking about your app discovery, your users, just to think about the complexity involved. And even thinking about pricing and licensing. We're going to go through all those steps in order for you to really start to make a very educated decision on moving forward with your migration. So a lot of those pieces that Scott talked about at the early part of the roadmap, your assessment and planning, We're going to cover a lot of those items in this webinar or in this workshop, and it's free. There's no cost to you, and you'll come away with an actual Confluence workbook or a space that you can take, you can export it, and you can then have and import that into your own instance to use going forward. So highly recommend that. Please apply to that. Spaces are limited, and we'd love to keep engaging with you around your cloud migration. Otherwise, we can see if we have any other questions. If you do have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A part of this Zoom meeting. And it looks like we have one question so far. Do you plan to make boot camps just for cloud migration? So that's a great question. I think right now the beginnings of a boot camp is this interactive workshop that's being hosted on the November 18th. So that's where we're going to cover quite a bit of what's involved, especially in the discovery and the planning side of the cloud migration. So great question. That's something I think we can certainly consider. We'll see how this first one goes, but it is going to be kind of like an initial boot camp. See, we have a couple of other questions as well, kind of related to that. What can I do to prepare now for a migration? And I think certainly one of the things is to consider our workshop. You can certainly also think about, again, some of the things we've talked about in this webinar, like start to look at your current instance, about your users and your groups, your apps. Think about your apps, and maybe you could even download the Confluence Cloud Migration Assistant or the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant. Start to get a sense of especially your app assessments there. You can start to engage your legal team, your InfoSec teams around some of those compliance and security issues. So there's plenty of things you can start to think about right now. And then you can also start to go, well, here's the other question then is, do I need a partner to actually do this? And the question is, or the answer probably from us is very likely you will. Most cloud migrations can be kind of complicated. They get really, really in the weeds quite a bit with things you have to do to prepare your server or data center instance to have stuff ready that will migrate well. We've run into many, many complexities with those app migrations, and we've become pretty good experts at a lot of apps that don't have a nice automated migration path, and most of them don't have a great migration path. And so you often will benefit from an Atlassian partner like XPM to help with those app migrations. Would you like to add anything else, Scott, to any of these questions that I've tried to answer?
No, I think that is. I think you did really great with those answers. I completely agree.
All right. Well, again, thank you for attending, and have a look at our upcoming webinars. Love to have you join us for those. And also, again, consider that workshop on November 18th. And if you do want to reach out to us, please grab our emails here from the webinar. We'll also be posting the recording of this webinar out on YouTube in the next week or two. So it will be available if you want to, again, watch it again or share it with your team members. And yeah, and we, as always, we'd like to say we wish you the best of luck and success with all of your Atlassian products, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.